We are joined by the Respect MP, George Galloway, MP, of course, now for Bradford, but Scottish-born. And you're no friend of the Tory government, it has to be said, and yet you don't sympathise with the argument that Scotland hasn't voted for a Tory government for a long time, so perhaps it's time to go its own and vote for its own government.
Well, there are plenty of Tories in Scotland, of course. 416,000 people voted for them just a couple of months ago, and another 100,000 voted for UKIP. So we shouldn't imagine Scotland is a Cuba just waiting to be unleashed. But I sympathise with the no voters who were just interviewed in your package. The sight of Lord Snooty in his top hat coming over the border is enough to stampede.
You'd advise him not to go if you want to help the no campaign.
Indeed, the coalition government is the principal reason why we're looking down the barrel of the breakup of the country. And Tony Blair's government is an additional secondary reason.
Why do you care? I mean, why do you care about the union?
Well, Bradford will be in a desperate state if the country breaks up, because take 49 non-Tory MPs out of Westminster and Ed Miliband will struggle to win any election in those circumstances. And the prospect for much of England of Tory government into the foreseeable future, maybe into perpetuity, is a disaster for working people on this side of the border. But most importantly, as a Scot, I don't want to see Scotland commit a significant act of self-harm. You quoted me earlier saying havoc would ensue. It's already begun. Alex Salmond is calming businessmen's fears this evening, before the vote's even been held, never mind independence declared. And the billions that were wiped off the share price of Scottish-based companies yesterday, and the slide in the pound is only the beginning.
You know, he says keep the pound, keep the Queen, keep the social union, so this would only be really a political adjustment.
No, because he can't keep the pound and shouldn't keep the pound. If Scotland became independent, the worst thing in the world would be to use another country's currency. That makes you a colony, like Panama. It would be absurd to say you were independent whilst being dependent on economic, fiscal, monetary decisions made in a London Parliament in which you had no members.
What's your answer if you or your children are faced with a choice? Well, either you can be Scottish or you can be, I suppose, British or lesser British.
Well, I think we don't want to have to make that choice. We can have the best of both worlds. The Gordon Brown's package that he unveiled yesterday gives super devo. I mean, never mind devo max. This is a super level of devolution. Why throw that away if you can have that and the additional strength, security and weight by being part of a bigger country?
I mean, there is this feeling sometimes in England, sometimes expressed particularly by Conservatives, that, I mean, one person summed it up, said, well, Gordon Brown's speech amounts to saying vote for the Union so the rest of England can go on paying for Scotland's pensions and welfare. Do you think there's any
I don't
truth
think
in that?
that's true. We've lived together for 300 years. There have been times when England had more economic contribution, times when Scotland, since 1974, the oil and so on, it's 50-50 that who's paying for whom. I'm more interested in the fact that mortgages will go up, that there'll be a race to the bottom as a centre-right government in Scotland and a right-wing government in England cut tax and regulation and public expenditure to be more and more Thatcherite, more and more attractive to big business to come in. The working people are sure to lose that race.
And you feel about this emotionally? I mean, for you, it's going to be like a divorce.
Yes, and you know, and I've been divorced. It's never pleasant. You can argue about the CDs, the DVDs, the dog, the car, maybe even the house. But the one thing that never ever happens is that the person walking out the door when you're begging them to stay gets to continue to use the joint family credit card. And that's essentially what Alex Salmond has in mind.
You've been in Scotland, obviously, you've been involved in the campaign.
I have.
What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I think it's very close. As Alex Ferguson, a great Scot and a great no voter, would put it, it's squeaky bum time. And those bums are definitely squeaking on the train to Edinburgh tomorrow.
George Galloway, thank you very much.
Thanks.